Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Rhythm in the Bow, released in 1934. It's the 90th in the series and it's directed by Ben Hardaway. Since doing the original commentary, a brand new HD version has emerged and it looks really good. I wish I could say the same about the cartoon, but anyway, that's another thing. But so far there's no physical media release, so hopefully one day that will happen. Now this cartoon's under copyright, so I can't show you the full thing here or else it'll just get deleted. But if you haven't seen it, well, you just got a bunch of hobos on the train. One of them gets kicked off the train. He does some stuff to a dog. He then encounters a hobo village of sorts, and then we have a dramatic conclusion. Not really much here, but again, I'll go through everything as well. First up you're going to hear is a re-edit of the original commentary I did. Then you'll hear some new thoughts from me, and then you'll hear from my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie tenor, as this is a Merrie Melodies short, and he's going to discuss the music, as this is focused on the title track of the same name. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So this particular cartoon is notable for one major reason, and that's, well, I've got to put this gag out first, actually, when the swipe right there. It's the last black and white Merrie Melodies cartoon, so from after this cartoon, the series will actually split up somewhat. So the Merrie Melodies continue, but in colour. At first it's 2-strip Technicolor, and then after the proper 3-strip Technicolor. And the Looney Tunes series would continue being in black and white, and that would be until, I think, about 1943 or thereabouts. I love this opening here. Look at the fingers, just how dainty he is with getting his fingers ready for the playing the bow. But how dangerous is this? I looked at this, I'm thinking, this would be, I mean, alright, they point that out, but what if it's another big train? What if you fall asleep and you don't move out of the way in time? It's crazy. So this guy, yeah, just literally kicks him out. I don't know, is that someone that patrols the trains or something? I don't know how it worked at the time. I mean, I would imagine, yes, hobos did ride the trains, but maybe not in that amount. You get more of these weird gags like this outside bathtub, which I thought was pretty funny. Public bath. Hope you guys aren't adverse to this Anthony right here. And then, yeah, this dog remembers the violin and gets into a little bit of trouble at the end, so we get a little bit of drama, which doesn't really happen in this film otherwise. But the dog does get trapped on the tracks, and we get another wipe there. I noticed, yeah, Jack King used those wipes and now Ben Hardaway. I don't know if that's just an idea that they copied off each other, or I don't know. But yeah, this dog gets trapped, the hobo saves its life, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So those were my original thoughts, and rewatching this restored, it's really interesting, because when you watch it unrestored, details get missed, and sometimes it just doesn't come across as remarkable. Watching this one restored, it's still not remarkable, but anyway, at least you can see some more details here, and to Ben Hardaway's credit, I'm very critical of the guy as a director, but he does put a lot of details in here, which I thought were interesting, especially with all the hobos around, and all the makeshift inventions that they use to do their day-to-day business, so it's definitely an interesting one to see. But on a historical level, this is the last black and white Merrie Melodies short. The next Merrie Melodies shorts will use 2-strip Technicolor technology. That's why they look very greenish and reddish, because Walt Disney had exclusive rights to 3-strip Technicolor for about 3 years after his first 3-strip Technicolor short called Flowers and Trees. And we'll mainly see Friz Freleng doing those, and then eventually Tex Avery would. Ben Hardaway, not so much. He'll do some more buddy shorts and then he'll disappear for a little bit, so there's that. What's interesting about this short is how it romanticizes the whole idea of being a hobo, traveling the land, being on trains and going where you want to go, and just the adventure of it all. And a lot of movies around this time actually did this, and you got the wise hobo and that kind of stuff. But the reality was quite different. It was definitely way darker than what the life is portrayed to be in shorts like this and in other movies and radio spots and that. it would be fraught with danger. So, as this short actually does suggest, our main character gets kicked off a train. You would imagine that they will try and go on a train and then try and have a good night's sleep, and then an officer that's patrolling would basically kick him off. Or if they're trying to sleep in a park or something, again, they'd get kicked off. So it'd be like that daily struggle. Think of homelessness today and how bad it is. Well, there'd be no different back then, and yet for some reason it was completely romanticized. It's absolutely bizarre, but I'm sure there's a main reason for that. But let's take a look at this short once more. Now that I've seen the restoration, there's a few things that I definitely missed, or there were just things that I just didn't mention in the original commentary track. I like the very first shot where we open up and we see the supposed driver, and we know it's going to pull back and reveal something, and it's not exactly something that's massively funny or anything. It's just the fact that he's thinking he's driving, he's on a train, and sure enough, he's squeezing Duck's butt, and the Duck seems to enjoy it, so take that how you will. I've got to say, the detail on the train is really, really good. I know that particular shot has been reused, but hey, if it's done so well like it is here, why not reuse it? There's certainly nothing wrong with that. And the opening bits with all the hobos just living their life on this train, it's really bizarre. I mean, what do you expect from Hardaway? If you look at his entire output during this period of time, and then when he comes back in the late 30s, and of course the Woody Woodpecker stuff that he would do, it's a lot. He's a very strange director, I've got to say, very strange. Like the knife sharpening, which real life physics wouldn't really allow, but that hot dog that appears, okay, whatever. Animation-wise, I like that dainty animation of the hobo with the water bucket, who becomes our main character. And we end up seeing the train driver, and he seems to be okay with the homelessness. Maybe he's sympathetic to them, unlike the officer that we're going to see later on. But I wonder how sympathetic all the drivers were. Was it a case of, I'm not paid enough to care, or was it like a mix of people who were sympathetic and then people like, nope, those are the rules, get off my train kind of people? If you know further details about that sort of stuff, definitely let me know in the comments. Then we hear the title song, Rhythm in the Bow, and my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, is going to definitely go through that very shortly, as it's, once again, out to promote a song. And we see a nice little gag of that hobo being stuck in a hammock. I like the animation there. Again, it's not a funny joke particularly, but I like looking at that sort of stuff. And why on earth is this hobo using a sidecar? Surely there's plenty of room on a train, right? And how dangerous is that? Because the train might go on a crossing loop of some kind, and then there might be another oncoming train. It's just so bizarre. And a lot of the train lines in the US would be single track anyway, so this wouldn't even make any sense. Where would he put the sidecar if there's only one track that the train is on? But whatever, I know. I'm overthinking it. It doesn't change the fact that it's very bizarre. And just as bizarre as skating in the back of the train. Yeah, I'm sure that's perfectly safe a thing to do. But anyway, we all know these hobos are just living that carefree life. But we know that it's not a Ben Hardaway short unless there's some sort of a blackface gag or some sort of racial gag. Here, I don't think it's a blatant blackface gag or anything, but still, it's Hardaway. You sort of expect something to do with blackface around this point in time. But gee, when we see that train officer, he's really pissed, isn't he? He's really upset. I wonder if he's going to have a go at this train driver for allowing the hobos on the train. But anyway, that's another thing entirely. But I wonder, does this officer just not like violin music? Again, this sort of romanticization of hobos living this carefree life, they will be constantly harassed by the police. And even this short shows that, yeah, it is what it is. But we then see the hobos kicked off the train. He does this, what I call a nothing gag, where he sees his two ducks and he just makes a pull for them together, right? Is that his attempt at character development to show how nice this hobo is? I don't know, but it's there, I guess. And he sees an angry dog. But what else do you do with an angry dog? You just play the violin. So if anyone has any problems with the dogs nearby, just grab a violin and start playing. Hey, it's worked for this character. And the animation, though, of the sad dog, I thought that was pretty nice too. I wonder who animated that. I wonder who. But I like the timing, though, where he's playing the violin, the dog's sad and everything, and then, boom, he just shuts that gate. And that's that. And I'll give Hardaway credit here. Normally, that sort of thing would have just been done and never mentioned again, but it does get referred to later on and triggers the third act, so I will give him credit for that. And I'll get into that when I get to that part of the short. But he approaches, well, I guess the hobo village. Everything seems to be nicely organized, which I'm sure it was exactly like that in real life, but anyway. And we got a nice little gag with the hobos saying singing in the bathtub. And it's a public bore. Okay, sure, why not? I'm sure that they would put signage up and everything in such villages, but anyway. And I like all those little details in this hitchhiker's retreat. If you look at the background, again, this is why I like to have these things restored, even in shorts that are just very, very average like this one. I like to see what's in the background, what they do. Sometimes you'll catch a hidden joke. Other times, you can just admire the effort that was put in. Now, we see one of the hobos read a novel called Anthony Adverse, and that was a real novel from 1933, so fairly new at the time. And it's about a protagonist that just goes around the world, which is kind of appropriate given the fact that these hobos would be seen as just carefree and just traveling everywhere without a care, without a home too, but there is that as well. It was eventually made into a film in 1936. And that same shot, I love the foot animation flicking the mosquito. Again, very carefree. Mosquitoes don't bother them. Our main character has can opener shoes as well. Why not? I'm sure that gag is done a million times before, because it's funny that homeless folks can't afford footwear, but anyway. Then we got another very bizarre scene where you got those hobos singing. Okay, that can make sense. I guess they got past the time somehow. A group of them might be singing a song or whatever. But why do they all have identical babies? I don't want to overthink this one. This is just very bizarre. And then we get some lovely animation on the dancing hobos, which, again, at least this cartoon being average, you can see some wonderful animation, at least for this period of time in any case. But being a Merrie Melodies short, we finally get our third act. But it's a twist, because as I mentioned before, we already set up this dog, so it's not just some random villain introduced in the third act to become the antagonist. So, again, I'll give Hardaway credit for that. And the dog seems to know how to do proper freestyle swimming. That's that. And then, yeah, the last act is just pretty much just a bit of moment of tension. The dog's chasing after the hobo. The hobo manages to get away from this oncoming train, but the dog gets stuck. Of course, we all know hobos all have hearts of gold. He rescues the dog, and we end right there. So I've been prattling on long enough, so my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, is going to discuss the music in this short, in particular the actual title track. So take it away, Manny.
Hi everyone, this is Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor, coming at you with the latest edition of It's Time for Manny's Music Time, with music trivia for you today. Bum! For the 1934 Merrie Melody, Rhythm in the Bow, directed by, not Friz Freleng, but Ben Hardaway. And because Anthony insisted on it, let's flash forward a little bit to the 1980s, 1985 in particular. To the beat of the rhythm of the bow, and we can make the bow go. I don't know, he insisted that I sing the title of this song to the melody of Rhythm of the Night by DeBarge. So yeah, I jumped ahead 50 years in the musical timeline, so to speak. But I do love Rhythm of the Night. Maybe next commentary, I'll just talk about 80s music and maybe do some of the 80s Warner Brothers things like The Duxorcist and the compilation films, which many of them I haven't seen. But anyway, I digress. So let's talk about this cartoon and some music, and let's have some fun, shall we? So first off, I know Anthony already mentioned, but this is the final Merrie Melody in black and white, which is always interesting. The cartoon itself isn't really that remarkable. It's a very strange early Ben Hardaway entry, but it has the historical significance of being the final Merrie Melody in black and white. Going forward, all the Merrie Melodies will be in color. I know that I have to record as well the commentary for those beautiful dames, and then from that point on, it's just in luscious 2-strip Technicolor and then later 3-strip Technicolor. So let's talk about the cues in the cartoon itself. So obviously it starts off with I Think You're Ducky, the Merrie Melodies theme, which I will be elaborating more in a future commentary. And then we get to the title track, Rhythm in the Bow, which was composed by Cliff Hess.
I always play my Stradivarius when I'm feeling low. We'll play this fiddle instead to middle and career, such rhythm in the bow.
Now, the song itself was originally featured in a 1934 Warner Brothers feature called Good Morning Eve. In the film, the song is sung by the actor Vernon Dent, who is playing Nero. There used to be a clip of the film online, but I was having trouble seeing it, and I sadly did not get the opportunity to watch it prior to this. So let's talk a little bit about the composer of the song itself. So Cliff Hess. Obviously, his real name is Clifford, kind of like the big red dog, but he wasn't a big red dog. So Clifford Frank Cliff Hess. He was born June 19th, 1891 in Cincinnati, Ohio. So let's talk a little bit about Cliff himself. And this information comes from ragpiano.com. So he was the only child of Frank Hess and Elizabeth Marie Fisher. He was taught in Cincinnati. He received some musical instruction in music theory and harmony. And he also was good enough or precocious enough, as a website would say, that he had his first instrumental work published in 1905 when he was only 14 years old. And the name of the song is It's a Bird. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. Come on, you knew that was coming. So he was starting to work his way up as a teen, playing piano in the Mississippi and Ohio rivers on various riverboats. And then he went over to Chicago in the year 1910. He was working as an actor, mainly being involved in vaudeville. So he was working in vaudeville, going on the road with singers as well as musical troupes. And he eventually crossed paths with a very famous person in American music history, Mr. Irving Berlin. So Irving Berlin was based out of New York, but Cliff Hess was based in Chicago. And the Chicago branch of a New York publishing firm called Watterson, Berlin, and Snyder got wind of this young Hess. I actually was reading in other websites. They said that Cliff Hess was Irving Berlin's secretary or his private secretary, but it was more like his right-hand man, because I actually didn't remember this, that Irving Berlin played by ear. He was great with writing melodies and he was great with lyrics, but he didn't know how to read music and he didn't know how to do the things like harmonization and arranging and things of that nature. That's where Cliff Hess came in, because he had that musical training, he had that knowledge, and he helped pretty much fill in the gaps. I know in an earlier Manny's Music Time, I talked about the significance of what Carl Stalling did and what Milt Franklin did. Like, these guys had musical training. They knew how to arrange. They knew how to harmonize music, all the nitty gritty that goes into music theory and composition. They have the musical chops. They have the training. They know exactly what they're doing when they write. And then some of the greatest musicians that ever existed, I'm thinking of like Frank Sinatra and Michael Jackson and other people that they didn't know how to read music. Or if they composed their own music, I know in the case of Michael Jackson, like he knew the basics of, playing with pianos and synthesizers and whatnot. But it was just pretty much him singing into a cassette and then somebody taking that melody, that idea, and expanding upon it, harmonizing it, adding in, the arrangement, the orchestration. And Irving Berlin clearly was a legend in American music. He wrote White Christmas, he wrote God Bless America, he wrote Any Bond Today, countless other pieces of music, but he had the germ of the idea, he had the lyrics, he had the melody, he had the main parts of the ingredients of his recipe, but he needed all the other crucial aspects to it. And that's what Cliff Hess came along and really helped him out. And according to this website, they were saying like some of the Berlin's big hits around this time period in the teens, you could pretty much say that Cliff Hess was the co-writer. So eventually Cliff Hess struck out on his own. He continued to work in vaudeville and he started writing his own music and getting himself out there. He eventually came out to California and started writing for films. He started writing for several films, but like I said, this one was in a Warner Brothers feature, Good Morning Eve. I kept wanting to say Good Evening Eve, but that's not the name of the film. And he had a career going on. I could expand more and more on it, but it's very late. And I don't want to make this super long. He eventually passed away, obviously. He died on June 8th, 1959. And based off the different songs that he composed, I did not see any other piece of music that he composed that was featured in cartoons. I know for the title track, Rhythm in the Bow, it was also featured in Porky the Rainmaker. When I heard the song, dun 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 dun, the melody of that song, I was like, that sounds familiar. And then I looked it up again. Porky the Rainmaker, the Tex Avery short from 1936, if you want another example of this particular song.
Now, friends, I'm here today to advertise my famous rain pill. Do you need rain? Are your gardens dying? Your crops burning up? Have you had enough of this long, hot, dry spell? All right, then. These pills can help.
So you hear that song throughout the short, obviously. And then you have all the bums or the hobos or whatever you want to call them. The gentlemen that, despite I complain about my taxes and making money and blah, 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 these guys clearly have it more rough. And later on in the cartoon, you hear a tiny little snippet of Shuffle Off the Buffalo, the main hobo in this cartoon. He takes out his violin and he starts playing the melody of Shuffle Off the Buffalo, and the train conductor joins along with him. And that's a very famous piece, obviously, from Harry Warren and Al Dubin, whom I've talked about countless times. And then later on, you hear a little bit of Kingdom Coming, also called Jubilo. That's what he whistles to the birds, you know. So what is Kingdom Coming? And I take this information from Wikipedia, but it comes originally sourced from a book called Songs of the Civil War. I quote, Kingdom Coming, also known as the Year of Jubilo or Jubilo, is an American Civil War song written and composed by Henry C. Work in 1862, prior to the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation by United States President Abraham Lincoln. The song is pro-Union, and the lyrics are sung from the point of view of slaves in Confederate territory who celebrate their impending freedom after their master flees the approach of Union military slaves. So pretty much, this is another song based off the Civil War that's been used in these cartoons. And even though it was not composed by an African-American composer, it was composed by a white man. It's a relic of the time period it's in, but a lot of the music that was written by white men, usually in the minstrel tradition, which obviously we look at in a modern context, and there are many problems with it. And this song in particular, I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a minstrel song, but when I was reading the lyrics, it's written in dialect, the stereotypical dialect of a slave, and I'm not going to read the lyrics. You go look them up themselves, but the melody itself, I've heard it before, and now I have better context of what the song is. So he whistles that to the little birdies and so on and so forth. So then you hear a little bit of the scene with the dog, and I gotta say, oh my God, whoever animated that dog crying, this is some of the weirdest animation that I've seen in a Warner Brothers short. I mean, this, and obviously it's a different director. I'm thinking of Shanghai Shipmates from Jack King from 1936. But the scene, the guys on the ship start eating and they're making these weird faces. And this dog too, like, just the crying and whoa. I mean, I don't know squat about animation. Paging Austin Kelly, paging Devin Baxter, because clearly no, but it's just, you just look at the scene, it's just how the way the dog is drawn, it's like super weird. But anywho, what is the song that the main hobo plays to calm the little doggy? That song itself is Traumerei. My German's a little rusty. And that piece of music is composed by Robert Schuman. So who is Robert Schuman? Schumann. Yeah, you can tell it's late. Schumann. Who is Robert Schumann? So he was a German composer of the Romantic period, born June 8th, 1810, and he died July 29th, 1856. He is one of the huge figures in the Romantic period of music. And when I say romantic, I'm not talking about I love you, smoochy stuff. When we talk about classical music, and I'm using air quotations, that term applies to Western, quote-unquote, art music, and that's another term that could be argued until Kingdom Come. See, call back to the previous song. But when people think of classical music, quote-unquote, they think of the music of Bach, of Mozart, of Beethoven, of Brahms, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, Wagner, pretty much. But the actual term classical music refers mainly to the music that Mozart wrote in his time period. Mozart, Haydn, things of that nature. From the early 1700s, I would say mid 1700s to the early 1800s. That's the real classical period. Pretty much Mozart and Haydn are the titans of that period. When you think of the music that Bach wrote, or the music that Antonio Vivaldi wrote, that is actually the Baroque period. If it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. But all right, you're fired. But the Baroque period preceded the classical period. So this is the early 1600s until the mid 1700s. People usually signify the death of Johann Sebastian Bach. Bach passed away in 1750. That's usually when they consider the classical period ends, because he was the big figure of that period. And just like history, it's not like an exact cutoff day, like, oh yeah, in 1750 all music transitioned into the classical period. No, it doesn't work like that. History does not work in that manner. It eventually morphs and changes over time. Yeah, you have the Baroque period, and then even going further back, you have the Renaissance, and so on and so forth. But when you talk about classical music, okay, you have the main ones that usually people talk about and discuss is the Renaissance, going in order and chronologically. You have the Renaissance, the Baroque period, the classical period. The Romantic period is the 1800s into the 1900s. That's the music that you think of Brahms, you think of Tchaikovsky, you think of Robert Schuman, as well as his wife Clara Schumann, Chopin, Mendelssohn, all these different composers. And then you could say the contemporary period, which has been the past 100 years, and then you could talk about other styles. Within the contemporary period, you could talk about neoclassical music, you could talk about minimalism, serialism, blah 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 blah. We could be here all night, and I don't want to because this is already 3:30 in the morning. But anywho, Schumann, if you study romantic music of the 1800s, you will definitely learn about him, especially his piano music as well as his vocal music. He wrote a lot of Lieder, Lieder, which means songs in German. It's pretty much German art songs. So an art song, or Lieder in this case, is poetry set to music for the voice and the piano. As I've said before, I'm a classically trained singer, and I've sung some of Robert Schumann's pieces before. I've actually never sung any of the music of his wife, Clara Schumann, but she's written some beautiful pieces of music for the piano as well as Lieder, so hopefully one day I'll get the opportunity to sing it. And going back to the song itself, Traumerei, it means dreaming. Well, I think I'm dreaming of going to bed, but okay. So let's just call it dreaming, Da, 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 da. Usually when people think of this song, dreaming, I'm just going to say the English word. They think of Jack Benny, who was known to play this song poorly on purpose, because he was actually a good violin player, but part of his shtick was that he played terribly on purpose. Well, the audience didn't know that. And yeah, every time I hear this, I think of just Jack Benny or caricatures of Jack Benny playing this song poorly. Then you hear a little bit of Singing in the Bathtub by Michael Cleary, Herb Magnuson, and Ed Washington, obviously in the scene where the guy is singing in the bathtub with a really cool bass voice.
Singing in the bathtub, happy once again. Watching all the troubles go swimming down the drain, down the drain.
And I also like, too, when there's a sign next to it that says public bath. Bawth, B-A-W-T-H, Bawth. I'm thinking that's what Anthony thinks how I pronounce the word bath, since he always makes fun of my northern New Jersey accent. I don't say Bawth, but say bath. I say coffee, and I say dog and water, but I don't say Bawth. So yeah, you hear singing in the bathtub. And then when you see the hitchhiker daydreaming or dreaming or Traumerei or whatever, see another callback. It's late. Cut me some slack. You hear a song called There's a Long, Long Trail. You just hear a little snippet of it. And yeah, this is definitely a weird short. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's one of those run-of-the-mill, you got to feature the song and go from there, and then the plot starts kicking at the very end. I know I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, and the new film Frozen Empire came out, and a big criticism that a lot of people were saying was that the plot really doesn't start jumping until the third act, and the third act is rushed. I think this cartoon is even worse, because like literally the conflict of the dog getting mad and trying to get revenge at the hobo and chasing him, and then he has to be rescued on the train track. It went way too fast. Way too fast. But then again, I know this. I've seen these early melodies quite often, but then at the end you see the dog and the hobo becoming fast friends. So at least there's a happy ending to all the shenanigans that you see forth in this cartoon. And I saw this short a few years ago, but I just forgot how like weird and just this, I don't know, Ben Hardaway's tenure in this studio. It's an interesting one because he had his early tenure doing the Buddies and the Merrie Melodies. And then obviously I have a soft spot for the shorts that he co-directed with Cal Dalton. But also, he's a big figure, obviously, in Warner's history. I mean, he is literally the guy that Bugs Bunny got his name from, as well as you could argue that the first cartoon to feature the Crazy Rabbit, Porky's Hare Hunt 1938. I mean, Ben Hardaway directed that short, and you could consider him one of the fathers of Bugs Bunny. I refuse to call that character Happy Rabbit because that's not his name. He was never called that. My personal name for that rabbit is the Hardaway Hare. So do with that as you will. I'm not being revisionist and saying that's what they called him back then, but you know, there's a term I like to use for it. And obviously, after Ben Hardaway left Warner's, he went to Walter Lantz, and he is one of the fathers of Woody Woodpecker. So there's that as well. So yeah, these are my thoughts for Rhythm and the Bow. To the beat of the rhythm of the bow. Da-dun-da. And I kept screwing it up. Like, I was forgetting, I'm like, is this cartoon Rhythm in the Bow? Like you're bowing, or Rhythm of the Bow, or Rhythm in the Bow, or Bow, or like I literally just every time I brought up this short, like I'm like, all right, I have to record Rhythm in the Bow. Is it Bow? Is it Bow? I couldn't remember. And good thing I watched it. And it's like, oh, bow, like strings and a bow. Oh, and I forget the Stradivarius. The lyrics of the song reference to Stradivarius, which is a prestigious type of violin. It's a type of string instrument, a violin, viola, cello, bass, that was made by the Italian family called Stradivari, in particular Antonio Stradivari, and he was like a master violin player. And some of the Stradivarius that still exist to this day can fetch hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars just to own one. Yeah, and I forgot Stradivarius, that's his name in Latin. And I'm thinking of Latin because I've sung, last week was Easter, and I sang a lot of services in Latin. So I guess maybe I'll just do my next review in Latin, you know. Agnus Dei qui tollis peccata mundi. Wait, that's part of the Mass. Never mind. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please follow me on social media at the Toonie Tenor, TheTooney, for updates on my life as a musician and as a multifaceted geek. Thanks for the support for Anthony's channel and for me, and I'll see you soon, folks. And that's all, folks. And I mean it for real because it's almost 4 o'clock in the morning. Bye. So there's something that I completely forgot about. So this is a brief addendum to the commentary for Rhythm of the Bow, and very important fact that I completely forgot about. So here it is. This is the rhythm of the bow. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is the rhythm of the bow, bow, bow. So I got the wrong song. I thought Anthony wanted me to sing Rhythm of the Night by DeBarge, but he actually wanted me to do Rhythm of the Night by Corona. And appropriately, I'm singing it at night. So enjoy. Have a great night. This is the rhythm of the bow. Now I feel like when Homer's voice changes when he's a kid. Of course, there's my Simpsons reference. Bye.
So thank you, Manny. This is not a great short. It's not remarkable. It's very meh. It is important from a historical point of view, being the last black and white Merrie Melodies short, but whatever. It doesn't mean too much. It's got some nice animation. I do like the song that's played, and the whole romanticization of hobos doesn't even bother me that much, because it is what it is. It's a product of its time, but it's pretty dull. It's not great, so this one gets like a 5 out of 10. Give it a watch if you can, especially in this new restoration, which again I hope still comes out on physical media. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.